Republican Congressman currently, Trey Gowdy. He's the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, member of the Judiciary Committee on the House as well.
From the great state of South Carolina.
Yeah, that's right, and he will be retiring. Congressman, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are y'all?
We're doing okay. What do you make of the news that Congressman Elijah Cummings of the great state of Maryland, who is expected to chair what you're doing right now, the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, he has suggested that when Mueller's findings come out, they don't necessarily have to become public. However, he would do everything he could to make sure that does happen. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't know what he means by everything. Does that mean divulge classified information? Does it mean divulge grand jury material? I hope not. I also find it ironic. I spent 2 years battling with Elijah, who wanted to keep lots of things secret. And I spent 2 years battling with Adam Schiff, who didn't want anyone to know about the dossier or Fusion GPS or the FISA process. So if they have this newfound embrace of transparency, that's good, but it would be newfound.
How do you feel about Mark Whitaker, acting director? Are you Matt Whitaker? Do you feel okay with that? Do you feel like that's constitutional? Because most Democrats have a huge problem with it.
It's an open legal question. There are good arguments on both sides, but he is the acting attorney general up to and including the time the Supreme Court says otherwise. I'm a lot more interested in who the next real attorney general is going to be and whether that woman and man can do the very difficult task of advancing the president's policy and legislative initiatives while working for a blindfolded woman and having the independence necessary to run our nation's largest law enforcement agency.
All right. Well, in other news, House Republicans are saying they're going to subpoena James Comey and Loretta Lynch. And Comey tweeted this out. He said, House Republicans can ask me anything they want, but I want the American people to watch. So let's have a public hearing. Truth is best served by transparency. Let me know when is convenient. Your thoughts?
Jim Comey really said truth is best served by transparency. Did he interview Hillary Clinton in public? Did he interview George Papadopoulos in public? Did he interview Michael Flynn in public? Did he interview Uma Abedin, Cheryl Mills? Has the FBI ever conducted an interview in public? And has the Facebook ever conducted an interview where you were limited to 5 minutes, which is what happens in congressional hearings? Ainsley, the last time I saw Jim Comey in a public congressional hearing, almost 100 times he said, I can't answer in this setting. So why in the world would he want to go back to a setting where he knows he can't answer all the questions? I'm sure he only wants me to have 5 minutes. I'm sure of that. Yeah. But I need more than 5 minutes. I have 37 pages of questions for Rod Rosenstein. So imagine how many questions I have for Jim Comey, and I can't do it in 5 minutes.
Mr. Gowdy, why wasn't James Comey subpoenaed earlier? Because now it looks like it's just waiting for the Democrats to take over. And how supportive has Kevin McCarthy been of the whole process?
Kevin McCarthy?
Kevin McCarthy.
Oh, fantastically supportive. I mean, Chairman Goodlatte is the chairman of Judiciary. Yes. Kevin McCarthy has been fantastic. So has Paul Ryan. In fact, Paul has rolled up his sleeves and gotten involved with the Department of Justice when they've tried to prevent us from getting information. The natural chronology of investigations is you interview everyone up to a certain point, and then you save the Jim Comeys and the Loretta Lynches and the Sally Yates for the end. That's how you naturally work investigations. Well, we're at the end. We're at the end because the Democrats aren't going to do anything in 2019. And quite frankly, we're also at the end. We've interviewed a lot of witnesses between House Intel and Judiciary, and it's time to bring in Comey and Lynch. But it is not time to do it in a carnival freak show atmosphere where my colleagues, some of whom can't question their way out of a one-story parking garage. I mean, I got colleagues that just aren't good at asking questions. So why would we do that setting where Comey's going to say he can't answer, and all you get is 5 minutes? I mean, the FBI doesn't do that, so why should Congress do it?
And just real quick, so what's going to happen? Are you going to? Is he coming in? You doing this in a lame duck session?
Oh, he's coming, whether he wants to or not. And Bob Goodlatte's going to set the terms, not Jim Comey.
Okay.
I got his tweet. He wants to do it in public. He wants to sell more books. He wants to be more famous. But Congress is going to decide how we can best advance the fact-finding and the truth, and that is not in 5-minute increments, and it is not in a setting where he can answer, I can't answer in this setting, like he's done almost 100 times.
All right. And Congressman, tell us about, I know you are a co-sponsor of a bill to posthumously award the Congressional Gold Medal to the Benghazi heroes, the 4 men who died that day on September the 11th. A couple of years ago, Chris Stevens, Sean Smith, Glenn Doherty, and Tyrone Woods. Why is this important to you now?
Well, everything you and I have discussed this morning, reasonable minds can differ, and they do differ. But on the heroism and the patriotism and the service and the sacrifice of those 4 men, Congress is unified. We can debate the decisions made in Washington on September 11th and 12th of 2012. But the actions taken in Libya were heroic, and they deserve to be recognized with Congress's highest award, and that's bipartisan and it's apolitical, which is why you have Elijah Cummings and I agreeing in full force that these 4 men ought to be recognized by our country.
So it definitely will happen.
I hope so. There's no reason for it not to. I don't know of anyone opposed to it. We just need to make it a priority.
Now, Trey Gowdy, I understand you're going to be unemployed soon on your own. You're going to be retired. So would you accept the Attorney General's job if the President asked? Would you interview it if he calls you? Interview for if he calls you?
Those are 2 separate questions. I would love to talk to the President about the qualities I think are important in the next Attorney General. I'm really excited about what I'm going to do next, and it's in South Carolina. But I would love the chance to advocate for someone like a John Ratcliffe or like a Susan Brooks or someone who can do that very difficult task of advancing the President's legislative initiatives while maintaining the independence of the Department of Justice. I mean, respect for the rule of law is the foundation of our country, and we need a Department of Justice that is both respected and worthy of respect, and it needs to be depoliticized, and there are certain people that can do it. I've actually never met or talked to the President. I would love for that to change. On the issue of who best to represent that department, I don't think it's me, but I would love to weigh in on who I think it could be.
Okay, Dick Cheney said the same thing. He ended up vice president.
I don't think it'll happen twice. He can do better than me. He can do better than me, and I'm really excited about the folks I'm going to be working for come January.
All right, Trey Gowdy, who has never met the President, and now he's got a whole new chapter ahead of him. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.